I'm sure your brains are probably ready to explode, but it's the first step towards parenthood, I promise. Again, my name's Shelly. I am with Men Having Babies. I'm a 3-time surrogate, so this panel is my favorite part of the program because it helps give you a better idea of what a journey could look like in very different varieties. So I'm gonna have them introduce themselves, but we have 2 dads on the panel who have built their families through surrogacy, Ewan and Jody, and then we have 2 surrogates, and 1 egg donor. So they're gonna introduce themselves, tell you who they are and where they're from, and then I'm gonna ask them a few questions just to give you a better idea of what their journeys look like. So Ewan, you can go first.
Sure. So as Sherry said, my name's Ewan. This is my daughter, Jasmine, and my husband, Paul, is at the back somewhere. So I'm originally from Scotland, but I moved to Canada about 20 years ago, met my partner, ended up staying here. And when we met pretty early on in our relationship, we had the discussion about would we ever want children? And I was a flat out no. It was something that never crossed my mind, didn't appeal to me at all. And my husband, Paul, was always like, well, I really want kids. So it's something we kind of discussed every few years. It would come up, and I'd kind of brush it away and distract him, and it was all good. And then about 10 years into a relationship, that's when I was getting a little bit older and started thinking maybe having kids wouldn't be so bad. So as soon as I opened that door a little bit, my husband was like, okay, well, let's do research, and he kind of lined everything up. He started researching all the different areas that we had to look into, like the legal aspects, how do we find a surrogate, all the fun stuff. So the ball kind of started rolling really quickly then. It's kind of, our journey is a little different from the typical one, but I think we'll get into those details a little bit later. So yeah, that's who we are. And this is Jasmine. She squeaks.
Jody, go ahead.
I'm Jody. My husband Brett is home with our 3 children. We have a 5-year-old with our surrogate Sarah, and then 2 years later she delivered us twins who are now 3. We have a very busy household. I'm Toronto born and bred. My husband is from a small town called Beamsville. We met in university. We were together we're together for, I'm gonna say 17 years because he's not here to correct me. And let's go with married for 6. And our house is very busy, and yeah, my husband always felt like as a gay man that really adoption was what we had to do because there were children out there who needed to be adopted, and that's sort of our lot in life. And we originally, when wanting to family plan, explored that a lot and realized it wasn't quite everything you see on TV or people talk about, especially for queer couples. And so then we met actually with one of the people here, Shirley Levitan, because I'm a lawyer, and so I thought I'd start at the legal side of things. And actually, funny anecdote, she introduced us to Frankie and BJ when they were starting their journey to sort of get a little bit of the lay of the land because conferences like this weren't really around when we were doing it. And then we went through our process and couldn't be happier now, which I say is the parent who's out for the evening.
I am Sarah, mom of 3, and I've had 2 surrogate journeys for Brett and Jody. I got into surrogacy because one of my friends did it and said, you know what, you had easy pregnancies, what the heck? And, well, we'll go with that. I'm local from Brampton, and you know what else I want to know?
Hi, I'm Tori. I am a mom of 3 and a gestational carrier of 2 separate journeys for 2 separate families. I live in Petawawa, Ontario, so I'm an active serving member of the Canadian Forces, which added some interesting aspects to my journeys for sure. I'm now retired, no more babies for me, but I looked forward to coming and sharing my story here.
Hi, I'm really nervous. My name's Jackie. I've donated my eggs several times. I was born in Germany. I'm actually a military brat, and I've been in Canada for about 20 years, and that's it. I'm so nervous. I'm gonna cry.
So now that you know who all of these wonderful people are, I'm going to ask them a few questions just about their journey, how we got here, and what the process looked like. So I know for me personally, when it came time, you decided you're going to be a surrogate, and you think about who you can possibly work with. And I always said, like, I needed to work with a gay couple because you have all of the odds stacked against you. You can't physically carry a pregnancy, so that's the people I want to help, the people who don't have any other choice, and that I have the ability to give them something that they can't produce themselves. So then you get to the process of picking your couple. And for me, it was reading all these long profiles, and I'm married and felt like dating. So me and a few of our board members, we always joke that it's like online dating, but my husband was sitting next to me. So it's like, this is fun. And I feel like a lot of them liked him more than me, but that's totally fine. So we'll ask Sarah, how did you get to the point of selecting Jody and his husband to help?
The agency I worked with, we made our own profiles, and then the profiles were put out to the parents. So I didn't do the initial selecting. I was a piece of meat on a wall, and everybody got to look and see if they might possibly work with me. I was allowed to put out the information that I wanted to share and talk about who I'd like to work with. I chose to work with a couple rather than a single person. There's lots of wonderful single parents out there, and I give them all the credit in the world, but if I'm going to do this for somebody, I know how hard parenthood is, and I wanted to do it for a couple. But aside from being a couple, I had no issues with any race, any background, gay, straight, whatever. I'm good with anyone. And I was matched up with another couple. We talked back and forth. We did a couple of phone calls, and it was okay. There was nothing wrong with the conversations, but it just didn't feel special. And they decided to move on to another surrogate after a couple of weeks. And so I was back up on the board, and within 24 hours, I got an email that there was another couple that would like to work with me. And I started writing an email. I got a basic profile and started writing an email. And before I even got to my second paragraph, I had a book sent to me by Brett and Jody. And I started reading it, and I went, oh my gosh, these are my people. These are the ones. They said everything I wanted to say to them, only they got to it first. And yeah, it was perfect. So we arranged to meet in person, and we hit it off at the coffee shop that we went and met at. And I think Jody and my husband talked nonstop, and Brett and I sat quietly and just let them go at it, because I think when we got into Star Wars and sci-fi and what I don't even know. I don't think it came up more than once, but it was match made in heaven, and it's all history from there.
I think that's how a lot of these journeys start as well. You're not so much talking about surrogacy or pregnancy. It's really just getting to know that person and making sure that your personalities are compatible and that your lifestyles are compatible, and that there's something beyond just a pregnancy that's holding you connected. Because the goal in all of this is not only to create the child, but just to create a journey that's so remarkable that your children will be proud of every step you took along the way. So this is step one, and then eventually you will be sitting here on my panel with me, with your child sitting in your lap. So like she said, you have to just trust what feels right. If it doesn't feel like a good match, don't rush into it. There's no hurry. I promise you the journey will be much more rewarding if it feels right and you're trusting your gut and you're following your heart. So since we're talking about following your heart, we'll ask you, Jackie, what made you decide that you wanted to be an egg donor, and how did you have that conversation with your family?
One of my coworkers, she expressed that she was an egg donor. I thought about it. My niece is gay. She actually just came out. I have lots of gay friends, and I researched it, and then it just felt right. I did heterosexual couples for my first few donations. Oh, sorry. And then I chose gay men because I feel like what you said, they do have the odds are against you guys. And I think everyone should have a family. I have one child myself, and I decided after one that I didn't want anymore. I'm able to donate my eggs and help you guys create families. That's just what I wanted to do. My family was they were really okay with it. My dad's military, so he has different views from us and them, and we just never spoke about it. My niece just coming out was kind of like, whoa, I wouldn't change it for the world. I have the two most amazing dads in France, and I've donated twice to them, so they have a little girl and a little boy. He's 4 months old now, and I speak to them every single day. They're my baby daddies. I just love them so much, and they're so good to me. That's it. I'm sorry.
Jackie, your heart's amazing. Thank you. So that's a huge part too, I think, and we'll talk more about. Ewan's story here is a little different because he didn't use an egg donor that he found somewhere. So I'll let him share with you his fun story. So share with us how you picked the egg donor for Jasmine.
Sure. So yeah, at the start of the process, we were kind of debating how we would find our egg donor. And very early on, we'd taken a trip back to Scotland to visit my family. And we were actually in the car going somewhere with my younger sister. And she'd had her first child the year before. And at some point during the conversation that my sister, Paul, and I were having, she had said, well, if I could ever help you guys, I would love to help you. And instantly my husband's ears perked up and he was like, oh, interesting, because you really could help us a lot. So he mentioned that obviously at the start of the process, we need an egg donor. So she said, absolutely, I would do whatever it takes to help you. She's my baby sister. I still looked at her like this little baby, so I really didn't think she was being serious or would follow through, but okay, well, let's think more about this, and we'll talk more about it, and then we'll see what happens. So, long story short, she didn't change her mind at all. She said, this is something I really want to do. I'd love to help you guys. And so we flew her to Toronto. We went through Create Fertility Clinic. They were great. They done all the testing. Everything was fine with her from a medical standpoint, and she was 100% certain she wanted to do it. So that was the first step, getting the egg donor. The process went fairly smoothly. The egg extraction process was a little bit more intense and intrusive, I think, than she had expected, or any of us had expected. So I don't necessarily think she would ever volunteer to be an egg donor again, but she's very happy that she'd done it for us. Then the second part, obviously, we needed a surrogate. So we didn't go through a clinic. We just went on the website SurroMums. I think it was surromums.com. We posted our profile there. And we didn't expect to find a match for a long time, but we found a match fairly quickly. There was a lady in Kingston who had been a surrogate once before, and she was interested in going through another journey. So we had a few phone calls on the phone, then we went to meet up with her in person, and it was a really good match. We got along well with her and her husband. They seemed to like us as well, so we said, let's start this process. So we did, and so we done the transfer, it was successful, and it was actually twins. it didn't work out. Then after that, it was kind of a tough stage because emotionally and financially, you're really drained. And it was at that point, oh, here's Jasmine. At that point, it was tough. And my older sister actually reached out to my husband, Paul, at that point. And they were talking, and she said, you know what, if you guys are 100%, you still want to do this, I would be your surrogate. So it was a whole family affair. So my older sister, we brought her to Toronto. She actually lives in Arizona. So she went through the process. The first time we were successful. We done one embryo. It took straight away. The journey was fairly smooth. It was there really weren't any hiccups. It was very different from a lot of people's journeys because obviously we had that bond to begin with. And yeah, 9 months later, we were blessed with Jasmine, who squeaks a lot. Thank you. Thanks.
I think these stories are great because it lets you know that you can plan every step of this way. You can plan your doctor, you can plan your agency, you can plan the attorneys, you can plan everything how it's supposed to look in your head. And then it goes completely the opposite direction. So you just have to make sure that you have your support system behind you when you suffer a tremendous loss, or when an extra step is added and you have to financially support that, or if your surrogate's put on bed rest, how do you financially support that, and how do you support her, and how do you make yourselves not go crazy when she's texting you from the bed because she's there for 24 hours a day. So it's just what helps you get through rough situations, what helps your surrogate get through those rough situations, and how together can this team help you get to your final goal, which is having a child. So Ewan, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's powerful. So my next question will be for you, Tori. What did the relationship look like with your couple once you were matched together, before the embryo transfer, during the pregnancy, and now that the child is here?
I don't actually think my relationship changed much with them from pretty much the day we matched. When my agency does it a little differently. I got profiles first, and then my profile was sent to them. And we talked within like the next day and decided we were gonna go ahead. They flew in because they're from the States, so they flew in, we met. I drove halfway, they drove halfway, we had lunch. And pretty much from that point, we talked every day. We still talk every day. Their little boy was 1 in September, so I get pictures consistently. Same thing when I was pregnant, I sent them every week. Mondays were my markers, so every Monday I sent them a picture of my belly, and then they would share it with their friends and family. My kids know exactly who they are. I'm sure their son will know who my kids are when he gets older. Again, we talk pretty much every day. I told them I was coming here, and they thought that was amazing because their journey actually started at a Men Having Babies conference in California. So that's kind of like a full circle for them, is that I get to sit here pretty much a year after their son's born and talk to a bunch of potential couples. So I've been pretty lucky. I know not all journeys go that way, and I've seen other fellow surrogates whose journeys aren't quite as happy, and they still get to continue to talk to their parents. But that was a pretty important aspect of how I picked my couple, was that I really needed to still get to see him, and I still see my first surrogate baby too. So
Wonderful. I think that's a huge step from the beginning, is how much contact do you want? Do you want to talk to your surrogate with every milestone? Do you want to talk to your surrogate when, I remember when I was pregnant the second time as a surrogate, I had this weird craving to put crunchy peanut butter on a slice of pepperoni pizza. And my guy said, if you ever get a disgusting craving, we want to hear about it. So it was like a selfie of me like eating peanut butter on my pizza. So it's just those conversations we had at the beginning. I wanted them to be as involved as they wanted to be. So if that was my baby, I would want to know all those weird things. I would want to know that I sat in front of the freezer in July in California because it was so hot and the air was on and my family was wearing like parkas, but I was burning up. So just have those conversations now because they do change a little bit. I talked with my couples every single day when I was pregnant, and now that they have children, we obviously don't talk as much because they're a little busy now. But we still have a really great relationship, and we both wanted that from the inception of this relationship we created together. So have conversations about that. Have conversations about the medical process, like how involved do you want to be? Because there's parts of this medically that you're not a part of. You're not a part of the IVF medication protocol. So I did intramuscular injections into my backside. I had lumps and bruises, and they were like, ooh, send us pictures, that's cool. So it would be me like, and I would send it, and I'm like, if their phone ever gets hacked, I am done. But it was fun for us because it helped them be involved in a part of a process that they gave up so much control of. You don't get to control a lot of this because you're not pregnant, and it's not your doctor, and it's not your body, and it's not, we weren't even in the same country the first time I was a surrogate. So just getting as involved as you want to be, make sure that that's known up front. Because you're gonna have weird conversations that if you don't have that level of trust and communication, like you're not gonna wanna know about how an ultrasound is performed to get the heartbeat. It's a vaginal probe ultrasound. That sounds fun, right? Get used to all of these words because it's gonna be things that, but I never thought I would be talking about my menstrual cycle with 3 men on a Skype call. I never thought that in a delivery room it would be like 3 dads and 2 grandmas and 2 doctors and 5 nurses. It's like, it's fair game, guys. So it's just, yeah, it was a huge production. And the first time I was a surrogate, it was twins, and I had a great journey, but I would not wish twins on anybody because it's a lot of work. So it's just trusting your gut, trusting your comfort levels. Don't compromise what you want out of this journey just because of the amount of control you have to give up to kind of embark on this and to create the family that you deserve. So my next question will be for the ladies. I think as surrogates, it's one of those moments where as gay men in this room, you had your coming out moment, right? So as a surrogate, you get your coming out moment when you're visibly pregnant and somebody's like, oh my gosh, when are you due? And you're like, oh no, it's not mine. Or, oh no, I'm not keeping this one. Or as my 8-year-old was, when she was younger, she would see, my sister-in-law was pregnant at the same time as me when I did my last journey, but it was her baby. And so she's like, oh, auntie, who are you giving your baby to? So, I mean, with the right personality, for me, it's normal. Like, I'm not giving up a baby. I'm giving this family the gift that they deserve. But with that, there's also the pushback of like, you must be a heartless person if you can carry a baby for 9 months and give it away. So there's just a lot of, you come out as a surrogate and then, oh, well, fine, I guess I'll accept the fact that you're a surrogate. Who is the baby going to? And then we have our coming out moment for the second time that we're a surrogate mother for a gay couple. And a lot of times that's, I have luckily surrounded myself with such an open group of people that they're like, of course it's for a gay couple. But there's also a lot of pushback. And you guys have lived that your whole life, but as a surrogate, sometimes that's not something that we've ever understood firsthand. And I think this is our moment to really understand where your lives have been and what you've been through. So for any of the ladies, what comments or statements have been made to you that were not positive, and how did you push through? And hopefully enlighten somebody that this is a beautiful journey.
I did get a lot of the, you're giving your baby away. And after a little while, it did take a bit of time to figure out my speech. But yeah, eventually I got to listen. It's not my kid. This is not my baby. This is not my egg. This is not my husband's sperm. I am babysitting. It's a long-term babysitting job, but I am simply babysitting the same as you would anybody else's kid. You know what? Parents are away, you're babysitting. Parents aren't here. I'm babysitting. I'm taking care of this kid like I would for my own. And once it's out in the world and able to go to its parents, it's going to its parents. So that's it became my little speech to anybody who had a problem. But My friends are great. I didn't have a lot of problems, but there's a few that did come back on me. So.
I think I was actually pretty lucky. My job on the base, so I obviously see, probably 75% men, and they'd be like, "Oh, congratulations, when do you do?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's not mine." And they just kind of like stop and look, and I'm like, "No, this baby has 2 dads." And I kind of just like left it at that and would walk away. I think my most favorite moment was my husband at the time is a medical technician, so I was booking an appointment, and they were like, "Oh, nobody told us you guys were having another baby," and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's not his." And then they all like kind of stare in the office, and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not mine either," and I just like leave. So I kind of my coping mechanism was just to kind of joke about it. I'm lucky my kids are. I actually don't think that you keep babies. They're very certain that that you just carry babies and you give them back to whoever they belong to, and they don't think there's any sort of there's no mom and dad, there's no dad, there's no 2 dads, nothing matters to them. Yeah, they are at the point now where they go to a Catholic school and their teachers were talking about mom and dads, and my little guy's 5. I have twins who are 5. And my son's like, my mommy had a baby for 2 daddies, so that's not how it works. It's good. So in my house, it's just been really open and a joke, and we just kind of move on. And I haven't really let anybody be negative. So I think if you don't open the door for it, it doesn't really happen.
I agree. My children think that we lied to them when we told them storks delivered babies, because they're like, "Nuh-uh, mommy, you deliver babies and you're not a stork." So I think it's just, the world is changing, and our children are going to change the world. So as honest as we can be with them, I think my children have probably shared the story to more people who were maybe not against the idea, but weren't aware that the option was there and maybe weren't open to it. And for them, it's just so normal that, like she said, if you don't let the negative happen, you can have fun with it. Laughter is a coping mechanism. So if that's what we get to use, we're going to use it. And Jackie, do you have any, as an egg donor, when people ask you who you selected to donate your eggs to, was there any pushback since you did it for a heterosexual couple and a gay couple?
Not gonna cry. I kept it quiet for a long time, but every single person was supportive of me for gay parents, every single person. But as a whole of donating my eggs, there was one person that, you're giving away your baby, you're giving away your egg. Sure, it's my DNA, but it's not my baby. It's not mine. I do see them we video chat every day, but there was only really one person that kind of was a jerk, and I don't know. I'd do it a million times over if I wasn't 34.
So I think to wrap it up, if there's one thing you take home from this entire day, it's to know that you have choices. You don't have to work with somebody that doesn't feel right. You don't have to pick a surrogate because you're afraid that the next one's going to be too far out. You get to make the choices now that are going to guide your journey to where it's going to end up. And at the end of the day, when you think about it, today is the first step towards the birth story of your child. So just making sure that that story is exactly how you envisioned it to be, because you have the choice. You get to choose that your child is born into this situation the best way possible, and you have a whole army of us here supporting you. So this is just what certain stories look like. This hopefully opened up your eyes to what questions to ask your surrogate, what questions to ask an egg donor, now that you've seen that they're real humans. All 3 of these ladies are wonderful, normal, happy humans that there's hundreds of us in the world, and we're all a little bit crazy, but it's the good kind of crazy. We're willing to just open our hearts to you because we think you deserve this. So don't ever forget that. And if you ever do forget that, I'm gonna post this video of all of us talking to our Men Having Babies page, and you just come back and watch, and you just remember that you're all amazing, and this is gonna be your future soon, and I'm gonna find all of you and make sure that it is.